The new Fable trailer is out on YouTube, and people are unhappy. If you are an Xbox gamer, you likely are aware of this classic IP. Initially released in September of 2005 for PC and Xbox consoles, Fable has withstood the test of time and is considered an all-time Microsoft classic. Although not a system seller, the IP certainly garnered a cult following over the years. The original Fable was groundbreaking for its time and helped modernized adventure RPGs. The sequel on the Xbox 360 was released to even more hype and sold 3.5 million copies. Although it was not Halo or Call of Duty numbers, many still enjoyed the game. It was only in the third installment that many started to lose interest. Fable, however, did try and make a comeback previously with the release of the Xbox One. Xbox wanted a whole co-op experience and decided to start working on Fable Legends. Sadly, this game never garnered any real mainstream attention. After a few years in development, Microsoft decided to scrap the game. This decision did disappoint many players, including myself. As a gamer on a budget, I have to make the hard choice of choosing only one console to play on. While deciding between the Xbox One and PlayStation 4, I chose Microsoft for one reason. This reason was Fable Legends. The cancellation came with great disappointment. Yet, here we are all those years later, and once again, Microsoft gamers eagerly anticipate an all-new Fable game. Unfortunately, this reboot is off to a rough start for many gamers. The teaser Xbox released during their showcase failed to impress many. Although some shared their nostalgia for the franchise, many are unhappy with the game's artistic direction. Whether this latest installment is a sequel or a reboot is still being determined. Irrespective of what we should call it, people prefer to avoid the leading protagonist. Fable always allows you to choose between playing as a man or a woman. During the Xbox showcase, Playground Games showed off what playing with a female hero would be like. People immediately went to Twitter to voice their displeasure when the leading protagonist was revealed. As you can imagine, the conversation centered around the looks of the female. The main complaint against our hero is that many feel she does not look feminine at all. Over the last few years, a massive debate has been ensuing on the internet over the masculation of female video game characters. People are pointing to Fable as just another example of this happening. People have been voicing their displeasure in the comment section of every trailer. The Xbox and IGN YouTube channels are hit equally hard. The current trailer is sitting at a dislike ratio of almost 60%. Sadly for Playground Games, it is only going to get worse. As much as video game companies are trying to push their games in a specific direction, there will always be those ready to resist. It is worth pointing out that only some people are against the look of the leading women in this game. Many argue that video game women do not have to be conventionally attractive. People will, of course, always have a difference of opinion on this topic. I have personally always enjoyed games with a beautiful lead. Although I consume content based on the story, it is sometimes more enjoyable if the people on my screen are pleasant to look at. Despite all the backlash, you can always rely on the media to give stories their spin. Although there is plenty of backlash over the looks of the main protagonist in Fable, many people are upset over this game for various reasons. It is easy to grab a headline stating that people are only mad because of masculinized women. I will likely do it with this story, but the anger of people does run deeper. Most people did not like what they saw from Fable. This is easy to understand. Unfortunately, Xbox does not have the best track record for games. They often release their IPs in an abysmal state. This is true for the whole gaming community. With the recent Redfall debacle, people's skepticism is at an all-time high. Gamers do not want to see cinematic trailers anymore as they can be too misleading. Develop your game until you are ready to showcase actual gameplay. Until then, spend your time working on the game instead of animating a trailer that will look nothing like the IP. When people saw the latest trailer for Fable, they immediately felt that it did not accurately represent what we should expect. Fable developers did respond to this backlash by stating that everything in their teaser was captured on the Xbox Series X and will be present in the game. Playground insists that what they showcased was gameplay. Despite this pushback, many within the media ignore this criticism and only focus on one part. This focus exclusively revolves around the displeasure people share over the looks of the leading character. They choose to do this because it allows them to label gamers as sexist. I will not sit here and insult anybody's intelligence. Some have a very shallow way of looking at video game characters. I am part of this group. As stated, I enjoy games where the leading characters are attractive. I want sexy women in video games, and when I have the option to create my character, I go out of my way to make them as attractive as possible. Many people feel the same way, and thus the revamped looks of leading characters are a point of discussion. You will note that I say the revamped look of the characters and not women. This is because it is not only women characters going through these changes. Many leading men characters are also going through a transformative period that people will call demasculine. Those who push back against this notion state that masculinity should not be measured by how big your shoulders are. There is more to being masculine than having a six-pack. As a skinny man, I have to believe this is true. Those who are, of course, making the claims that video game men are being demasculinized are not just referring to the look of the men. They are also referring to how submissive these video game men are now. An excellent example of this is Saints Row. It is, however, hard to say if men and women genuinely are going through changes in video games. Although many are not happy with the current direction of video games, some welcome this directional shift. Gaming is starting to become a more open and representative space. Growing up, I certainly developed self-esteem issues seeing certain overly masculine men. I recall watching shows where 30-year-old men played 15-year-old boys, and I always thought something was wrong with me. I could never understand why, as a 15-year-old did not look like what I saw on TV. At certain times, I thought men in the US grew up faster than in the rest of the world. This belief I carried with me for many years, thinking that men in the US were more prominent. Only once I was older did I learn that Hollywood did not like casting age-appropriate people. With this in mind, changing the appearance of video game characters can help with the self-image of young people. Although I can agree with this argument until a certain point, this is not true for video games. People play video games to escape their reality. I do not play with video game characters because they look like me. I play with them because they are the opposite. If I have to play a video game that reminds me of how much the leading character looks like me, I won't enjoy the experience as much. When I turn on my console, I want to escape into Fantasyland.